In the summer of 683, stones rained down on Islam's holiest city. Catapults, built by Muslims, aimed by Muslims, hurled fire and rock toward the Kaaba itself. This was not an invasion by a foreign empire. This was not a crusade or a pagan backlash. This was a civil war. And for a few terrifying weeks, Islam nearly destroyed itself at birth. To understand how Mecca came under siege barely 50 years after the Prophet Muhammad's death, we need to rewind to the problem that haunted the early Islamic world. Who has the right to rule? Muhammad left behind a faith, but no clear blueprint for political succession. The first four caliphs ruled through consensus, charisma, and personal authority. But by the mid-7th century, the Islamic Empire had exploded outward from Arabia to Egypt, Persia, and beyond. And with empire came pressure. In 661, after years of internal conflict, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan founded the Umayyad Caliphate, moving the capital to Damascus and turning the caliphate into something new, a dynasty. When Muawiyah died in 680, he broke precedent by naming his son Yazid as caliph. For many Muslims, this was a red line. Yazid was not universally accepted. Some questioned his character. Others rejected the very idea of hereditary rule. Among the most prominent opponents was Abdallah ibn al-Zubayr, a man with impeccable credentials. He was the son of a close companion of the Prophet, raised in Mecca, respected, pious, and politically savvy. When Yazid demanded allegiance, Ibn al-Zubayr refused. Instead, he stayed in Mecca, the spiritual heart of Islam, and waited. That refusal lit a fuse. Yazid's rule was challenged almost immediately. In 680, the tragedy of Karbala shook the Muslim world when Hussein ibn Ali, grandson of the Prophet, was killed by Umayyad forces. Trust shattered, grief hardened into rage. Revolts followed. By 683, the most dangerous challenge to Umayyad authority centered not in Syria, but in Mecca. Ibn al-Zubayr declared himself caliph, and thousands listened. Yazid could not ignore this. An Umayyad army marched south from Syria, first crushing rebellion in Medina, where the city of the Prophet was brutally subdued. Then, the army continued toward Mecca. This was unprecedented. No Muslim army had ever attacked the sacred sanctuary before. Yet politics overruled piety. As Umayyad troops approached, Ibn al-Zubayr fortified Mecca as best he could, positioning himself near the Kaaba, both spiritually and strategically. If Yazid wanted victory, he would have to take the holiest city in Islam by force. In late 683, the Umayyad army surrounded Mecca. Catapults were assembled on the surrounding hills. Then, the unthinkable happened. Stones and flaming projectiles were launched into the city. The Kaaba itself was struck. Its coverings burned. Its structure was damaged. For believers across the Islamic world, this was a nightmare beyond imagination. Islam's sacred center under attack by Muslims in the name of political unity. Inside the city, chaos reigned. Pilgrims were trapped. Civilians hid among the narrow streets. Smoke rose above the sanctuary. Ibn al-Zubayr framed the siege as proof of Umayyad corruption. Who but tyrants would attack God's house? And many believed him. The longer the siege dragged on, the more legitimacy slipped from Yazid's grasp. Then, suddenly, everything changed. In November 683, word reached the Umayyad camp. Yazid was dead. No dramatic battle, no assassination on the battlefield. Just a ruler gone, unexpectedly, inconveniently. Without clear orders, without unity, the Umayyad army withdrew. The siege of Mecca ended. Islam's holiest city survived, not because one side won, but because history intervened. With Yazid gone, the Umayyad state fractured. Ibn al-Zubayr's influence spread rapidly. For nearly a decade, much of the Islamic world recognized him as caliph. Mecca became the rival capital of Islam. But peace did not follow. Civil war simmered on, until the Umayyads regrouped. In 692, Umayyad general al-Hajj ibn Yusuf returned to Mecca with overwhelming force. Once again, catapults surrounded the city. This time, there would be no interruption. Ibn al-Zubayr was killed near the Kaaba. Umayyad rule was restored. But something had changed forever. The siege of Mecca in 683 exposed a terrifying truth. Islam's greatest danger was never external invasion, it was internal division. The faith survived, but at a cost. The caliphate became firmly dynastic, political power separated from moral authority, and civil war became a recurring pattern. And perhaps most haunting of all, for a moment, the center of the Islamic world burned, not because of enemies at the gate, but because of brothers fighting brothers. History could have gone very differently, and that is why this siege matters. Islam endured its most fragile moment not in silence, but under fire. And the fact that it survived tells us less about inevitability and more about how close the world came to another ending. If you enjoy cinematic history that explores the moments where everything nearly fell apart, subscribe to the channel, because the past isn't just what happened, it's what almost didn't survive.